Assalamualaikum and hi to everyone. We are from Group 2 Audiology. My name is Muhammad Shakir Nasrullah and my group members are Amira Natasha and Wan Nur Jamia Irdina. Today we are going to present about adolescent cognitive development. In this presentation, we will explain the definition of adolescent cognitive development, factors and stages of cognitive development, theories related to cognitive development and the positive and negative effect during adolescence. First and foremost, what is adolescence? Adolescence is defined as a period of transition between childhood and adulthood. It usually happens at 10 to 19 years old. Adolescents will undergo the changes that will differentiate them from child, such as physical changes, intellectual changes, social changes, and psychological changes. They also will develop their own moral compass. In this stage, adolescents become more independent and more emotional, and they will start to thinking seriously for their future. This stage is important to prepare adolescents for adulthood. Next, I will explain about cognitive development. Cognitive development is referred as development of thinking skills, including memory, communication, problem solving skills, decision making, and reasoning. As adolescents grow up, their brain become more mature. It will make they think more logically and can solve the complicated problems better than children. Now I will explain why cognitive development is important during adolescence. First, it is important to improving their decision making skill. As the skill improve, they will predict their future outcome and understand the consequence from their actions. They also can differentiate the choices before making the decision. For example, they may think carefully before choosing a friend, choosing a subject to study at university, and their future careers. This will help them to make a wiser and more responsible decision. The second importance of cognitive development during adolescence is shaping their self-identity. During adolescence, teenagers begin to explore their beliefs, interests, values, and their future goals. They start to discovering what they are and what they want to become at the future. For example, some adolescents may interested in sport, science, music, and leadership activities that will influence their future choices. The last important is to build their social and emotional skills. Cognitive development help adolescents to regulate their emotions, help them to understand the other person's perspective, and also help them to express their feelings properly. As a result, they can communicate better with others like friends, family, or partners. For example, adolescents learn to control their anger, solve the conflict peacefully, and show empathy towards others. In conclusion, adolescence is an important stage of life where many changes happen in this period. Cognitive development helps adolescents to improve their thinking, communication, problem solving, and decision making skills. It also helps them understand themselves and others better as they prepare for adulthood. That's all from me. I will pass the presentation for the next.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amira Natasha binti Ikon Zaini. So I will be continuing this presentation with my parts, which are factors and stages of cognitive development in adolescence. There are two factors of cognitive development in adolescence, which are brain maturation and environmental and social influences. One of the factors of cognitive development in adolescence is brain maturation. So, during early adolescence, which is around 10 to 14 years old, there are changes in dopamine levels. This increases sensation seeking and reward motivation behavior. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex is still developing. This part of the brain controls judgment, decision making, emotions, and impulse control. Because of this, adolescents are more likely to engage in risky behaviors compared to children or adults. From adolescence until the 20s, the brain continues to form neural connections through a process called neural pruning, where unused neurons and connections are removed. Myelin production also increases, helping brain signals travel faster between different brain regions. As a result, adolescents become more aware of their potential and capabilities, but they may also experience emotional imbalance or instability. Next, I will explain the environmental and social influences on cognitive development during adolescence. First, a positive environment can help improve brain development and neuroplasticity. It also helps adolescents gain knowledge more easily and develop better cognitive and problem solving skills. Socially, the adolescent's brain undergoes many structural changes. Teenagers become more sensitive to peer feedback and social acceptance. Because of this, they may sometimes engage in risky behaviors to gain peer approval. However, social interaction can also encourage positive learning and help shape decision making skills. Now, I will explain about the stages of cognitive development. Piaget, a psychological constructivist, proposed that cognition developed through distinct stages from birth through the end of adolescence. By stages, he meant by a sequence of thinking patterns with four key features, which are first, they always happen in the same order, second, no stage is ever skipped, and then each stage is a significant transformation of the stage before it, and lastly, each later stage incorporated the early stages in itself. There are four stages of cognitive development. The first one is sensory motor intelligence, pre operational thinking, concrete operational thinking, and formal operational thinking. So the first three stages happen during childhood, while the last stage, the fourth stage, which is formal operational thinking, happens during adolescence, which is what I'm going to explain about. The formal operational thinking stage usually begins during adolescence. At this stage, adolescents develop the ability to think more logically and abstractly. First, they can create hypotheses and think about different possibilities before making decisions. They are also able to suggest explanations or problems. Second, adolescents develop deduction skills. They can understand abstract ideas that cannot be directly seen or touched, such as love, freedom, beauty, and morality. Lastly, they are able to test their hypotheses systematically to determine which idea or solution is correct. This shows that adolescents are developing more advanced thinking and reasoning skills.
Next, I would like to talk about theoretical foundations in this chapter. There are three theories that can be related to this adolescent cognitive development, which is the first one is Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory. Next is Alkine's theory, and the last one is Vygotsky theory. First of all, I would like to explain about Jean Piaget's cognitive development theory with our specific focus on the final stage known as formal operational stage. Okay, as we can see on the left, this stage is characterized by the ability of adolescents to produce abstract thought and also engage in logical thinking. Okay, to be more clear, let me just give you some illustration, which is how adolescents approach the pendulum problem. When they are given the pendulum situation, they will systematically isolate variables to find a solution rather than just only relying on trial and error. However, in this stage also introduce a unique cognitive development known as adolescent egocentrism. During this period, teenagers experience an increase of self-focus, is actually often struggling to separate their own internal thoughts from the perspective of others. This cognitive overlap frequently leads to an exaggerated sense of self-awareness. Okay, next, if you look at the overview on the right, this represents of Piaget's four distinct stages that's spanning from infancy all the way through age 12 and above. Now, let's look at second theory, which is Elkan's theory, which explains about two main behaviors in teenagers. Before that, Elkan's theory is actually the expanded version of Piaget's cognitive development theory. There are two main behavior in teenagers, which is imaginary audience and personal fable. Okay, first is the imaginary audience. This is the belief that everyone is constantly watching and judging them. It makes teens very self-conscious and also worried when it comes to their appearance and also their behavior. The second is the personal fable. This is the feeling of being completely unique and special, and they are often thinking that no one understands me. Because of that, they feel invisible and it can lead them to take dangerous risks. Last but not least, let's take a look at Vygotsky theory of cognitive development, which focus on how culture and social interaction can help adolescents to learn. Okay, the first one is considering culture. Vygotsky theory stated that children learn directly through interactions with their parents, teacher, and also their skilled peers. Main ideas of this theory is actually adolescents can learn best by working together, which means that they can um, increase their problem solving skills when they are working in teamwork. The next one is zone of proximal development, or we call it as ZPD. As you can see in the diagram, ZPD is the gap between what a child can do completely alone and what they can achieve with a little bit of help, or we call it as support. There are two scenarios of ZPD, which is the first one when the information all inside the ZPD, meaning that the task is too hard to do alone, but can be possible when it comes or with a little guidance. As a result, adolescent is just enough to grow and stay motivated and also build their new skills with help, or we call it as scaffolding. Second scenario is when the information fall outside the ZPD, meaning that the material is completely beyond the child's current ability, even if someone helps them. As a result, the student will get easily stressed, lose their confidence, and also give up because they cannot understand it yet. Let's talk about positive issue or benefits with this stage of development. There are three key highlighted here, which is advanced problem solving, caring about big issues, and metacognition. The first one is advanced problem solving. Adolescents can now think scientifically and systematically to find solutions. The second one is caring about big issues. Adolescents begin to care deeply about the world and they are trying to understand big concepts like justice, equality, and also global issues. The last one is metacognition. This means that adolescents can reflect on their own thoughts, which helps them to control and also regulate their behavior better. If you look at the case study at the bottom, it perfectly ties all three components together. A teenager noticed a plastic trash problem at school. Instead of just complaining, they use advanced problem solving to design a recycling plan and also pitch it to the principal to fix it. Now, let's take a look at the risk issue that adolescents face due to their changing brain chemistry. There are three key highlighted here, which is the first one is invulnerability illusion. This is the belief that bad things only happen to other people. It gives teenagers or adolescents a false sense of security that makes them feel untouchable. The second one is peer pressure. At this age, social media is so critical that a teenager's logical brain can literally shut down when it comes to their friends or when their friends are around, so will lead to poor choices. And the last one is social media trap because they are highly sensitive to what others think, so they are easily targeted by cyberbullying or by fake news online. Here a case study that brings this together clearly. Okay, a teen texts while driving, thinking other people crash, but I am a great driver, so I will be fine. So this is perfectly highlights how the feeling of being invisible overrides basic safety logic. In summary, this slide is actually highlight how the combination of feeling invisible, needing peer approval, and navigating digital pressures can override a teenager's logical thinking and also create dangerous real world risks. Lastly, moving on to our conclusion. Adolescent cognitive development may provide a starting point for lifelong learning by offering teenagers opportunities to explore, interact, and also grow in a supportive environment. These adolescent experiences can actually contribute to developing skills, confidence, and curiosity over time. Overall, by understanding and supporting their changing brains today, we actually prepare them to become the independent thinkers and also leaders for tomorrow. That's all from our group. Thank you.